Hello everybody, assalamu alaikum. Okay, we were supposed to start supply today. Okay, chapter 6. So, in chapter 6, we will be discussing about supply. So, supply is the amount of good that will be sold at a given price over a period of time. In other words, supply is the desire to sell goods and services at a given market price. Characteristics of supply desire to sell goods or services at a given price. Okay, so these are the two characteristics we're getting, right? Like it's just false, right? Because it becomes mm, a burden or the purchasing power of the consumer falls, and so the demand falls. But if we are talking about the supply, then when the price changes, what happens that demand also supply increases when the price is increasing. See, why? Because the higher price will be attracting more suppliers into the market because the higher price means a higher profit. Okay, so let's draw a supply curve. Okay. Mm, First, we have to draw these two axes. This axis is for price. I'll put a zero over here and quantity. Okay. Next, we will discuss our supply curve. Okay. So in demand curve, it was a downward sloping curve, and supply we are saying that this is an upward rising curve. Okay. So see now let's see what's the response from the price. When the price is changing from P1 to P2, okay, see the price is falling from P1 to P2. So what's happening in response? In response, the previous quantity supplied was Q1, but now it is falling to Q2. Okay, so here we see what's happening. That due to the fall in price, the suppliers will be demotivated and they will be supplying less. Okay. So see that that's why there is a positive relationship between price and quantity supplied, right? Okay, so again, this will be known as movement along the supply curve. Okay, so there are two types of change. This is known as movement along the supply curve. Why? Because see, within the same supply curve, it's moving from one point to another. Okay, so whenever the price is changing, it's the response from the supply is that it's also changing, but it's moving from one point to another. Okay, that's why this is known as movement along the supply curve. Okay. Then we have something called fixed supply. So fixed supply, okay, let's discuss what is fixed supply. Like we will be discussing about fixed supply in the chapter priceless supply again. Okay, but this is not half yearly, so yeah. Let's see. So sometimes this supply curve is like this vertical straight line. So that leads to a fixed supply. So if you are considering about elasticity, this is known as a perfectly elastic supply. Okay, that means no matter whatever the price is, the supply will remain same, whether it increases or decreases. it will remain same. Any price, at any price it will be same. Okay, so that's why this is known as fixed supply. So let me give you an example. Like you see, if sports venue, a stadium maybe, it has 15,000 seats. Okay, and 15,000 seats, and the price of the ticket was 100. So if the price of the ticket price is to 150, so it's not possible to increase the seats. It will be like fixed, right? Previously it was 100, yeah, 15,000. It will be at 15,000 as well. Okay. Because you cannot increase or decrease the stadium seats, right? So that's why this is known as fixed supply. Okay. Next, let's discuss about the factors of supply. So we already discussed about price. Okay, so a change in price leads to um, movement along the supply curve. And when the non-price factor changes, like these factors, this will lead to shift of the supply curve. Okay, so let's do some example from shift of the supply curve. Okay, let's draw a shift first. We already did movement, so let me know if you are failing any problem to understand. Okay. So this is the diagram for shift. See what's happening? Previously it was S1. For some reason it shifted to S2. Okay. So see, there is a rightward shift. That means it's shifting from S1 to S2, and it's getting close away from zero, right? So this is a rightward shift. So this rightward shift means the supply is increasing. Okay. So in this case, notice that the price is not changing. Only the area is changing. What? Whenever there is a rightward shift, something else is changing, but not price. Price is remaining same. At the same price, suppliers are somehow motivated to supply more. Okay. And opposite thing can happen when due to the change in factors. We will be discussing the factors. What are the non-price factors over here? See, in this case, it will be shifting to the left. From S1, it's shifting to S2. Totally a new supply curve. Okay. So here it's getting closer to zero. So that means this is a fall in supply curve. Okay. So the supply is falling and it's shifting leftwards. Okay. Now, what are the factors that are leading to this kind of situation? Um, so it's not price; it's these other factors. Okay. So let's discuss the first one. When the cost of production increases, what will happen? Okay, so we already discussed that. Yeah, it's very much related to the profit, right? So when the cost of production is increasing, but the price is not increasing, so it's not. We are not able to increase the price. So at that time, what will happen? There will be a rise in there will be fall in the profit, right? Cost of production is increasing, so the profit will be falling because we cannot increase the price. So when this fall in profit will reduce the supply. Okay, so what kind of change will be there? There will be a shift definitely, right? Because this is a non-price factor. Sometimes people confuse this cost with price. So cost and price is a different thing. Cost means that it's the production cost, okay, or the purchasing cost, or selling price, and price mostly means the selling price. Okay, so the price that we're selling to the consumers. Okay, so what will happen? There will be a leftward shift to be more accurate, right? Okay, so because of the rise in cost of production, there will be a leftward shift. Okay. Okay, next we have indirect tax. Mm, so tax is a source of revenue for the government, right? You know that, right? Government collects tax so that they can run the government, so that they can spend for the country. Okay. Now indirect tax means that tax on spending. Okay. Whenever people are spending or a farm is spending, they need to pay indirect tax. For example, VAT. Okay, like you visited departmental stores, right? Agora, Shopmall, Mina Bazar. Okay, so when you go there, what happens that you have to pay an extra amount of VAT, which is an indirect tax. That means suppose you're buying maybe grocery worth of maybe 2,000 taka, and you'll find that you have to pay extra 15 taka for this grocery. Okay, so what is that? That's a VAT. Okay, and now let's so you know what is that and what is indirect tax like. Now think about a situation where the supplier is getting affected. Okay, so suppose the suppliers are buying raw material. So whenever they're buying raw material, they have to pay an extra amount of tax. Okay, so this may lead to rise in the cost of production. Okay, because the raw material cost will increase from the seller's perspective. We are thinking that whenever they're buying raw material, they have to pay some extra. So this will lead to a rise in cost of production as well. So we already discussed what happens if the cost of production increases, profit falls. As a result, supply also falls. So there will be a leftward shift. Okay. Next is price of other goods. Okay, so other goods means like suppose you are producing potato. Okay, and maybe there are options like you can also produce carrot. So when you're producing a potato, what's happening that maybe the price of other goods, that is maybe carrot, is increasing. Okay, so what will happen from the supplier's perspective? Okay, so you were producing potato, now you're producing you will be interested to produce carrot because there will be a rise in the price of carrots. So people the yeah potato producers will be thinking, okay, what's the point of producing potato? The price of carrot is quite high, so let's reduce or stop the production of potato and move all the resources, use the land, labor, and capital to produce carrot, so that they can and earn more profit will be there. Okay, so that's it. That rise in price in other goods may reduce the supply of your current goods. Okay, but increase the supply of the goods that have an increased price. Okay. Next, we have natural factors, like think about disasters, like flood, okay, or drought. Okay, so in this kind of natural disaster, what happens that the supply will fall, right? And there will be a leftward shift because think about that. Let's suppose you're producing rice during flood. What will happen? Your crops will be destroyed, and the supply of rice will fall. Okay. So this is important. So the sufficient rainfall and all the other weather conditions should be, if they are in a perfect state, then we can say yeah, supply will increase. Okay. Rightward shift, right? Okay, next we have change in technology. Okay, so day by day the technology is changing. We are bringing out more machineries, more technology, robots, and everything. So all these will be leading to an increase in the supply. Suppose you are producing clothing, ready-made garments, maybe. Previously, maybe you used to use needles and threads to produce yeah, ready-made garments. But now later on, we increase the speed by using machineries. Okay, later on, we came up with more advanced machineries with advanced motor gears or electricity and everything. And then later on, maybe we will be using robots to produce garments. Okay, so what will happen that the supply will increase because within the same period of time, we will be able to produce more. Okay, so that's the impact of change in technology. Next, we have subsidies. Subsidies means there will be a rise in supply, because subsidies means it's like a grant to the government. This will increase like that means the sum a part of your a part of our cost of production will be supported by the government. A part of it will be beared by the government, okay? And like, because this is like a grant or a help from the government, so that a certain kind of production can be encouraged, okay? So this is known as subsidies. So these subsidies will lead to a rise in supply, because cost of production is falling, profit will be rising, so they will be interested to supply more. Okay, so these are the factors that will lead to a shift. Okay, okay. So basically, this is the chapter we were talking about. Okay. Next, this is the end of the chapter. Next chapter is about equilibrium. Okay. Let's discuss a bit more about this chapter. Uh, we don't want to rush. Okay. We'll start the next chapter later on. Okay. So let me know if you're facing any problem. I'm telling a bit more about this thing. Okay, let me give you some case. So suppose in the current situation, what's happening? The price of watermelon is increasing, right? Have you noticed that the price of watermelon is increasing? So what will happen to the supply? Yes, there will be a rise in supply, right? So which graph will represent the situation? This one, right? A change in price will lead to a change movement along the supply curve. But this is showing a downwards effect on price. But yeah, it will be the opposite one. Okay, very similar to this graph. Okay. Later on, maybe let's think about what will happen to the supply of oxygen cylinder. Okay. Okay. So this in this current pandemic situation, what's happening that there's a high demand for oxygen cylinder, and to provide that, government and also other some private firms are trying to increase the supply, right? So that they can. It's not about profit always, right? But definitely some people will be supplying more, yeah, for the rise in price or rise in profit maybe. But mostly there will be a leftward rightward shift, because maybe at the same price, people will be able to supply more oxygen cylinder, okay, to beat this pandemic situation, right? So maybe at the same price, more oxygen cylinder will be supplied. Okay. So what is the factor over here? So there will be like a rise in maybe production plant. Okay. Rise in production plant, rise in technology. Okay, there are also the people are coming up with new technology so that they can produce oxygen quickly. Okay, so supply of yeah, oxygen cylinder will increase because of the change in technology or rise in subsidies. Okay. Then think about in our country what happens, like flood is a very common situation. So during flood, what will happen to the supply of rice? So we already discussed it, right? If there will be a leftward shift. Okay. So you got the basic idea, and there will be different kind of changes, and it will lead to this shift or movement. Okay. So I've seen that many people struggle in this graph, but see, these graphs are very simple, right? If the prices is changing, there will be movement along the supply curve, and if there is a change in other factors, they simply draw these diagrams, which are shift, right? Rightward or leftward. If it gets away from zero, that means it's getting toward the right, right? It's moving, shifting to the right, so it means it's getting away from zero, right? And so that means supply will be increasing, and when it's getting closer to zero, that means it will be falling. Okay, supply will be falling. Okay. Okay then. So that's all for today. And let me know you're facing a problem. We'll be discussing about market equilibrium in the next chapter. Thank you, everybody.